What's up guys, my name is Abdulnafi, and in this video we're going to be making this render right here. So we're going to be importing the model first, we're going to be creating the whole environment, we're going to be doing some creative lighting using HDRIs, and we're also going to be adding some blinds to make this more interesting. Alright, so we're just going to be covering the basics of how to make creative product renders in Blender. Now before we start, I do want to mention this one thing, which is that this render is actually a part of a full course that I have, a full product visualization course that I have. So this is just one of the renders that are going to be covered in that course. So if I just play the intro video of that, you're going to see that we're going to be making this render right here. This is going to be our first render in the course, and it's basically an animation, like the whole animation of the scene. It's all covered in the course. Apart from that, we're also going to be making this render, which I'm going to be showing you in this video as well. And then we're going to be making this Rolex animation. So it's like this course is jam-packed with like a lot of useful information for product visualization. So if you want to take your product visualization game to the next level, this course is going to be really helpful for you. And there's also this MacBook animation for all those tech geeks out there who want to make tech animations. So you guys can learn a lot from this course. And I think right now you can get it for like $10-15 on Udemy. So just go ahead and get this course if you want to learn further. But yeah, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this scene. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the internet, and the model, what I did was I just went to Sketchfab, I searched for perfume, and I just got this model right here. So this is it's a pretty good looking model. We are going to be texturing this ourselves, however, and we're also going to be adding the label ourselves because that's apparently not included. Everything else, the whole model, the whole shape is looking pretty good. So just click download 3D model, and I'm just going to download blend file because why not? Alright, so the model has been downloaded, and by the way, all credits for this model goes to Christy Matthews. So yeah, thanks a lot for that. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open this, and you can see this Blender file we have. So we can just go ahead and drag this on desktop, but for that, I'm gonna have to minimize all this and just drag it right there. Replace file and destination, I don't care. Okay, so it should be here, right? Perfect. Just open it. And so we can see how this looks. Now we are going to have to make some adjustments to the model, but we're just going to do that. It's really not that hard. It's pretty simple. So yeah, okay. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to right click right here in the middle and join areas, and I'm just going to join this, actually this area right here. And then once again, join areas, this, so we can just have one viewport and like not multiple. So I'm going to delete all lighting, everything basically except for even the camera. So basically everything except for the bottle itself. And I can just go ahead and delete the labels as well. Perfect. Okay. And the good thing is the bottle is already in the center, so that's pretty good. Now what we can do is we can go to material preview mode. And you got to make sure that you are in cycles and your device is set to GPU compute if you want to have realistic results. Let's go ahead and go to rendered mode actually. And yeah. So I think the material that it comes with is already pretty decent. Actually, I'm going to keep this material, but the top material I'm going to have to change. So what I'm going to do for that is we can use this add-on called Blender Kit. If you don't know what that is, you can just search it on the internet, Blender Kit, and you can just download it from this website right here. So just click download Blender Kit, and you can just download this. Instructions for installing it are here. But if you get my full course, I'm going to explain everything in detail on that as well. But I just want to keep this YouTube video short, so that's why I'm not going to go in detail. But once you have that add-on enabled, what you can do is you can just go to the search bar up here, click materials, and search for metal. So if you press enter, you should get a lot of these options. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look for something which is like clean and dark. Maybe something like this might work. Let's try that out. I think that looks pretty good. In fact, instead of metal, how about we do leather? Let's try that as well, because I think leather perfume caps look pretty good. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna go with that. I think that looks super good. Yeah, perfect. All right, so next up, what we're gonna be doing is that we're gonna be going ahead and adding a label. So for the label, I'm just gonna be searching for a label. Actually, perfume label Canva. So we can just use Canva for this. And So it has a lot of these labels, a lot of free ones, a lot of paid ones. So you can just choose for whatever you want. Actually, what I'm going to search for is I'm going to search for product label, because it's not specifically a perfume label. You know, you can just use any label if you want. So I think I use this one. You can just customize it. It's by Elena Design, so all credits goes to that person. But yeah, you can just change the name, whatever, just modify it however you want. But I think I already have it saved in the back in my desktop. I think it's this one. Yeah. So I'm just gonna basically apply this now. So what I'm gonna do for that, I'm gonna go back to Blender. Let's go back to our viewport mode, like our viewport shading mode. Let's click add. Let's add a plane, right? So with this plane selected, we're just going to be rotating it 90 degrees in the y-axis. So RY, actually not y-axis, my bad, the x-axis. So just press R, X, and then 90, like that. Go to the side view and place it somewhere in front of the perfume. Make sure it's not intersecting, but make sure it's not too far either. Then you can scale it down and you can place it however you like. But I think something like that should be a good position. Pretty good. Okay, now what we can do is we can just go ahead and apply the material. So go to the material tab, click plus, just click new, whatever. Go to shading tab up there. So once you go to shading tab, you're gonna see that you're gonna have some nodes right here. What we can do is now we can just drag in the image as a node. So just drag in the image like this. It's gonna come in as a node. Plug it into the color tab. Oops, plug in the color into the base color, and you can see that it's appearing perfectly fine. Now, for example, if it doesn't appear like this, if it's not correct, what you can do is you can press tab to go into edit mode, press A to select everything, press U to go into UV mapping mode, and you can just do basically what you can do is you can just go to the front view, and let's do that again. So AU, and then just do project from view. So that should basically fix it, but it just increased the size. So then you can just go to UV editing, and you can click this, press A to select everything, and just adjust the size. Make sure it's exactly the same as, I mean, roughly the same as the perfume, right? If I go back to shading, you're going to see that it is going to look perfectly fine. All right. So that's essentially it. Now we can just go ahead and get started with the lighting and making the rest of the scene, because I think we are pretty much done with the making of the bottle. So what we're going to be doing is that in this lighting technique, we're basically going to be using an HDRI. So we can just go to render view first and just set the render engine to cycles and set the device to GPU compute. Now we can just click this render button right here so that we can see how it's going to look. All right. It looks pretty realistic, but it looks pretty bad because obviously the environment is not good. Okay. So what we can do is we can just click this world property right here. In the color tab, we can just click this orange, this yellow dot right here, and we can click environment texture. Now we can press open, and we can just open any HDRI that you want to open. Now I'm assuming that you don't have any HDRIs. If you do, you can just add any one you want. But if you don't, what you can do is you can just search for HDRI Haven on the internet, and you can just go to this website called Polyhaven. It used to be called HDRI Haven, but now it's called Polyhaven. And you can basically just choose any one of these which you think looks good. So I usually like to go with sunset sunrise, and I think the one which I used in that project was, let me actually see which one it was. Yeah, I think it was this one, near the river. So let me try to add this. Let's see. It looks, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was this one. Yeah. So you can just get this exact one. I think it was, yeah, it was this one, I think, near the river O2. Or you can just get any one of these. Ideally, what I would want to do is I would want to get an HDRI which has like some sort of sun, some sort of like place where there is sun. I wouldn't get something like this, which is like, it's sort of like a sunset. It's a different vibe. If you want to recreate what I'm trying to create, then you wouldn't want to add that. However, you can go ahead and add it if you're going for like a different vibe to your scene. But yeah, you can even go for something like this. This is pretty good because it has a very clear sun, and because the environment is not going to be visible, it doesn't matter if you only get a pure sky, or you get like a proper, what do you call it? An actual like shot of an actual environment. It doesn't really matter. But once you are done with your HDRI, once you have an HDRI chosen, you can just go to, you can just click on it, and then you can select 4K or 8K. I would recommend 8K because that's going to be good. 16K is obviously going to be better if you in our situation it's not going to be better because we're not really going to be seeing the HDRI. But if you want to show the HDRI in your render, then you can definitely go ahead and sort of download 16K. But for us, 8K HDR should be fine. Click download, and once it's downloaded, you can just go ahead and add it using the method that we did. So you can just click open and just go to wherever you have that saved. Okay, perfect. So now what we can do is that we can start to sort of build out our atmosphere. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding a mesh, which is going to be a plane, right? I can just go back to my viewport shading mode, and I'm just going to be selecting everything, which is basically everything which is a part of the perfume. And I'm just going to be right clicking it and creating a new collection. I'm just going to call this, actually first I'm just going to select everything and drag it inside the new collection. Then I can just call it perfume like that. And so this collection, oops, I spelled it wrong. So essentially this collection is the perfume, and this collection, other one, is going to be the walls and the planes and all that. So let me move the perfume a little higher because you can see that it's sort of intersecting with it, which might not seem like a big problem right now, but it is actually a pretty big problem because you can see that the bottom looks pretty fake, right? But if I select the plane and if I move it down a little bit, you can see that the whole reflection and everything is just changes suddenly, you know? That's why, especially for glass, it's very important to sort of make sure that nothing is intersecting. So, however, right now I'm not going to be moving the plane downwards. I'm just going to be moving the perfume upwards because it is, what do you call it? It just makes more sense because it's like the plane is on the x-axis, so I don't want it to be lower than that. So we can just select the perfume by right-clicking the collection and click Select Objects, GZ, and just move it slightly up, something like that. Even if it's not touching it, it's like slightly above it, it's perfectly fine, like that. And yeah, I think the position is pretty good. Now we can just go ahead and go back to our viewport mode and scale it up, something like that. Maybe something like that should be fine. We can press Shift D to duplicate this, and now if I press Z, it's only going to move in the Z axis. So I can place this one somewhere like there. Okay, and I can actually select both of these and press G and press Shift Z to move it in the X and the Y axis, but not the Z axis. And I can just move it something like that, because I want the perfume bottle to be near the edges, and I want more space on this side so that we can sort of place our camera as far as possible and we can increase the focal length, right? So that's why I'm trying to do this. We can select both of them. So select one of them, press Shift and select the other one. And then we can press Shift D again to duplicate them. But this time I'm going to press R to rotate them. And then I'm going to press Y to rotate them in the Y axis. And I can rotate them like this. And just press 90 on your keyboard, just type 90. And press enter so that I can rotate them exactly 90 degrees. I'm going to press S and X to scale it up in the X axis like that, so they can basically move apart like that. And we can also scale them down in the Z axis by pressing S and Z. Although that part was optional, you can just have some extra geometry in your scene, doesn't really matter. But now we can just select both of these, Shift D once again, R to rotate them, Z to rotate on the Z axis like that, and press type 90 on your keyboard so you can rotate it like that. Perfect. So that's how we create sort of like the whole atmosphere for the perfume, right? Now if I press render, you're going to see that we're obviously not going to see nothing because it's obviously completely dark inside it, which is exactly what we want. But now what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be sort of so I want the lighting to come from the right side of the perfume, like in this render. So I'm going to go back to Blender, and you're going to see that from the right side it should be this one, right? So we're gonna, if we remove this completely, you're going to see that if I go to render mode and if I just hide this completely, you're going to see that there's a lot of light, right? The opening is like way too much. I don't want it to be that big. I want the opening to be like slightly smaller. So what I'm going to do is let me just go back to my viewport mode, and with this selected I can press tab to go into edit mode, and everything is going to be selected by default. But if it's not, you can just press A to select everything. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press I to inset it. Okay, if I press I and if I reduce it, bring the mouse closer to the center, you're going to see that it's going to become smaller and smaller. Something like that should be a good option. And just left click this, and you're going to see that we've sort of created a smaller face inside of the plane. Right now what we can do is, with all that selected, we can just press delete on our keyboard, and you can just select faces. If you select anything other than faces, it's not going to work. You have to select faces. And so now you're going to see if I press tab again to get out of edit mode, you're going to see that we have a small cavity inside this plane, which is going to be good for the lighting. And so now you can see that the lighting is a lot more sort of better as compared to before. You can see before it was like way too much lighting. Now it's like a little more sort of, what do you call it? It's a lot better looking, right? So now what we can do is, let me actually go ahead and just add a camera right now so that we can sort of position our camera properly and we can start working on the lighting. So I'm just going to go ahead and add camera and just press this button right here to go inside the camera and go to view, lock camera to view, and just place your camera. I would actually recommend you to experiment with the camera angles and sort of come up with different and unique camera angles. But I'm just going to be using this one, which I used right here. So it's, I think the focal length was something like 70 millimeters. And by the way, to change the focal length, you have to make sure that your camera is selected. I'm just going to be bringing my camera out of the perfume collection and just set it in, just put in the scene collection. So make sure your camera is selected and go down to your camera settings. And focal length is usually for product renders, I would want to set it around somewhere around 60 to 70, 60 to 100 millimeters, anywhere between that. In this render, I'm going to be setting it to 70 because I think 70 looks nice. Or maybe we can set it to something like 80. I think 80 should be better. Right now we have a horizontal horizontal render sort of dimensions. So to change that, I'm just going to go to my output properties, set the resolution X and Y both to 2000. You can set these to any values. As long as they're the same values, you're going to get the same results. And I think I can probably just go even higher, somewhere like 100. So the higher this is, the better it's going to look in my opinion in this specific render. Obviously in your render it's going to be different, but I think something like that is a really good render position, right? I'm just going to lock camera to view now. And so our camera angle is sort of fixed. We can obviously make tweaks to this later on, but for now I think I'm just going to go with this. So let me unzoom a little bit, and I'm going to press Control B on my keyboard so we can set the rendered region, so that we can only render the place that we're, the area that we're actually going to see, and so it's faster. So I'm also going to go to my render settings, and we can go down to denoise and just turn it on. Denoiser, I'm going to set it to optics. If you have an NVIDIA RTX graphic card, then you can set it to optics and it's much faster, it's much better. So yeah, there's that. Now, one problem which we have right now is that the lighting is pretty smooth. It's not being cut by anything. It's not being disrupted by anything. But in this, you can see that the lighting has some lines in the middle, some shadows, which is just sort of giving it more personality and more, it just looks better, right? So let's go ahead and add that. So for that, what I'm going to do is that we're going to be using Blender Kit. Now, I'm assuming that you have Blender Kit installed. If you haven't, you can just go to Blender Kit, search Blender Kit on Google, and then you can just go to blenderkit.com and just download Blender Kit and follow these instructions to install the add-on, right? But I'm assuming that you already have installed it because I'm pretty sure we went over this in the previous section. But yeah, so if you have Blender Kit installed, what you can do is you can just go up there and search for blinds. You can obviously just use cubes, or you can like model your own blinds. But I found a really good model of blinds which we're going to be using. So let me go to Blender Kit, set the search filters to free first, and I think it was this one, vertical blind B. So just add that, and you're going to see that they're inside the perfume collection. I don't want that. I want them to be in the scene, in the main scene collection. Right click them, select objects, and then what we can do is we can just move our camera like that, and we can position it properly. Okay, so let me just go to my viewport mode so it can be smoother, and I'm just going to go to my side view for this, and so let me place them somewhere here. I'm going to press R and Z to rotate them in the Z axis like that, and I can just write 90 on my keyboard to rotate them 90 degrees, and then R and 180, oops, not 290, 180 like that, so I can rotate them 180 degrees. I'm just going to be scaling them down like that, and just make sure that the size is similar to the size of your window, right? I can also scale them up in the x-axis, actually no, the y-axis, something like that. Something like that should be good, but I think I want to make the window a little smaller because it's too big right now. And I can also bring it closer in the x-axis like that to make sure that it's in the right position like that. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the plane, go tab into edit mode. We can click this button right here to go to edge select mode, and I can just select this edge and shift select this edge, press S and Y to scale them down in the Y axis, and I can just make it smaller like that because I don't want the window to be that big. And we can also press G and Y to move them. If you press G and Y while both of them are selected, you're going to be moving them together, and just make sure that they're roughly the same size as the blinds, right? Because I don't want the light to leak as much. But yeah, I think right now we're looking pretty decent, right? Now if I just go ahead and render this, you're going to see that suddenly we have a lot of these shadows, these lines and shadows, which look pretty good. Okay, we're getting close, we're getting there, we're almost there. We just need to do some like a little bit of tweaking. And so right now you're going to see that the position of our lighting is not really good. We want to move the sun. We want to move the sun to a place where the shadows sort of look more pleasing, right? So for that, we're just going to be bringing this area up, and instead of this timeline, what we need is we need a shader editor. So we can just open the shader editor there, and instead of object, we want the shader type to be world, because obviously we want to change the world texture, the HDRI, right? And with this selected, I'm going to press Control T on my keyboard. Now for this to work, you need to have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. If you haven't enabled it, you can go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and just search for Node Wrangler. And this is right here. You just have to make sure that this is checked, it's enabled. And once this is, you can just select this and press Control T, right? Now in the mapping node, we can just change the rotation Z to sort of change the position of the HDRI, which is exactly what we want to do. So I'm just going to increase this. You're going to see that it's going to become closer and closer to what we want, right? Like that. If you take it back, you're going to see that it's going to light most of the back area. Something like that. So what I actually want to do is I want to change the position of my camera a little bit. So let me lock camera to view again, and let's change the position something like this. Yeah, something like this. But then I can also change the position of my perfume to be in the center of the camera, obviously, like in the center of the frame. And also I'm going to be rotating a little more, something like that. I think that should be a better frame. And then I can change the lighting, because I think now the lighting is going to hopefully look better. Again, the lighting is something which is very subjective. You might think that this lighting is not looking that great, so you are free to sort of make your own changes. And even if you think this looks good, you can still go ahead and make your own changes, because that's going to improve your creativity. And it's going to make sure that you are actually learning something new, right? Instead of just blindly copying what I'm doing. Right, so I think we're looking pretty good. Next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to add some marble materials to this, or any sort of materials that you want to add. I personally am going to add marble materials. So that we can do right inside of Blender Kit. So in the search bar, you can just select materials, just click this button right here for the materials, and just search for marble. And you can choose any of these. I would recommend you to not copy the ones that I'm using, and just sort of use something which you genuinely think looks good. Now for the material to apply, you have to make sure that the object that you want to apply it to is selected, and then you can just look for whichever material you want. I kind of like that, honestly. And the good thing about Blender Kit is that you can just click on a material and it's just gonna apply to your object, and you can just sort of test a lot of materials like this. Sometimes Blender Kit is not going to show you the material. It's not going to enlarge the material, so you can just click this I button right here and click it again, and it's going to fix that problem. I think I might go with something like this, because I think this looks pretty good. Or actually, I'm just going to go with this one. But right now, the problem with this material is that the scaling is I think the scaling is high. That means the material is smaller. So I can just go to set this to object, and we can go to our mapping area of this, and scale, we can set it to something like 0.4, maybe even less. Also, to edit all of these, you can just click one of these and drag down. Maybe 0.2 should be fine. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. 0.2 is going to be what I'm going to go with. Now let's select the walls and apply something a little more simple to the walls, something like that. Yeah, I'm going to apply the same material to both of the walls. Let's try decreasing the scale of this as well. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, perfect. So we are looking pretty decent. Uh, let me see. Let's see what we can sort of improve in this. I think one thing which we might be able to do is probably, I think this one shouldn't be as dark, honestly. I think it should be lighter. Maybe we should pick something lighter, you know. I think that looks pretty good. I'm actually gonna go with that instead. Yeah. And we can even tweak the world lighting a little more. So the rotation. Yeah, I think it's looking good where it is. Yeah, I think that's a good spot. One thing which I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna go to my render properties, go down to color management, and we can set the look to very high contrast. Actually, no, for this, I think high contrast should be fine. Very high contrast is looking a little too harsh. I think that should be good. Yeah, that's pretty good. And another thing we can do, if you think that the HDRI is sort of light and it's not as good, what you can do is you can just go select this background node right here, and you have the strength, which you can just bump it up. And actually, no, I think this looks kind of overexposed. My only thing is this background is looking, this part is looking pretty dark. I don't want it to be that dark. So let me actually move this ahead. So just G and X like that. Let's move it here. Like, let's move it pretty close. And then we can obviously change the position of the HDRI as well. I might want to change the position of the camera once again. I kind of want to place the perfume bottle right here. I think that might be better. So let me change the position of this like that. And again, right now, all we're doing is just trial and error. And that's what sort of 90% of animation is literally just trial and error. Just trying out different things, seeing what looks good and what doesn't. Yeah, I think that looks much, much better. Yeah, I'm actually gonna go with that. And you can see that now I think we can also increase the contrast to very high contrast. I think that looks pretty good. Perfect. So this was the render which we started with. Obviously, this looks better in my opinion. This looks good, but I think this looks better. Part of the reason is because this is edited. I did edit this inside of Luminar or Neo. You can also go ahead and edit it in any editing software you want. But another reason for that, also one thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the strength actually to 0.8. Yeah, that's better. Another reason for that is because we didn't really spend as much time on this, just tweaking this. I think I spent like almost an hour just trying to tweak the position and all that. So the reason why I'm telling you this is just so you can like know that if you want to make your artwork look better, you are going to have to spend a lot of time on it, right? You're going to have to spend quite a lot of time on it and sort of do a lot of trial and error. And one last thing which I want to do is I want to move this wall right there closer to the render. So just G and X. The reason why I want to do that is because in Blender, lighting works almost the same way as it does in real life. So the closer the object is to you and the brighter it is, the more light it's going to reflect, right? It's just going to sort of fill in the shadows a little more. So if I just like that and go to my camera, you're going to see that if I press G and then X, and move it forward, you're going to see that this part is going to become darker. But if I move it closer, you're going to see that it's going to start to become lighter and lighter like that. And I'm just going to keep it pretty close, honestly. I think that looks pretty good. But I'm not going to have it visible, or you can just make it visible, honestly. Actually, I might just do that. Yeah, I think that looks good. But for that, we're also going to have to, my bad. We're also going to have to add a material to this. So just select this and apply a material. Perfect. And for the floor, I actually want to do something else for the floor. This is a very interesting, honestly. It looks pretty interesting. Maybe something like that. Again, it's all trial and error. You can just try a lot of things out and just see what looks good and what doesn't. I'm trying to look for the material that I added to my original render. I want to see if I can apply the same one. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to find it right now, but yeah. So you get the point, right? The more time you're going to spend, the better your render is going to look most of the time. And but yeah, once you've decided what marble material you're going to apply, what you can do is you can just go to render settings and go to your render properties, and then change the samples to something like 1,000. Again, this depends on how much time you're willing to let it render. The higher you're going to set this, the better quality is going to be generally, but more time is going to take to render, obviously. So I'm actually just going to go with, yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I'm just going to go with that. Press Ctrl S to save it. And once you're ready, you can just hit render and render image. So you can just let it render like that. And once you're done with this, you can just click image and save as. This is grayed out right now, but once it's rendered, it's not going to be grayed out anymore. But you can save as and just set wherever you want to save it to. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this. I really hope you learned something new, and I really hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.